So we've been talking about, oh, that was happening and it wasn't good for us, and that was happening and it wasn't good for us and all that.
Yeah.
Okay, but you're here.
Yeah.
Why are you here?
Yeah. Okay. I get it.
You're here. We're here. Our team's here.
Yeah.
We're all here
Yeah.
because you want to build something, right?
Yeah. And I want to prove to everybody who's here that we can do this.
And what is it that we want to do?
We want to win.
What does winning look like?
We want to win new clients and make an impact.
Welcome back to Looking Forward, the podcast where we unpack some of the most pressing enterprise challenges. This is episode 6. And in this episode, we thought we'd do something different. We've enjoyed recording the first 5 episodes. We've gotten some amazing feedback from our amazing listeners.
Mm-hmm.
However, as we look back and listen to the podcast, we felt like there's something that might be missing.
Yeah. When we decided to do the podcast, part of why we wanted to do it at all was to be a little bit vulnerable and have a new avenue for reaching folks that we would ideally like to work with. And so revealing a bit more about who we are seems to be an opportunity we haven't really taken advantage of yet on this platform.
Yeah, we noticed we were diving into some really interesting topics that are 100% relevant, but we stayed away from sharing more about how we feel, what we're thinking about internally in the company, what we're going through as a group of
Who
people,
we are.
And in this episode, we're going to take a little bit of a sidecar,
Talk about our own challenges.
talk a little bit about our own challenges, open up the kimono, as they say, and yeah, maybe get a little personal.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'm sure there are others who are facing similar challenges. Maybe it will resonate with some people.
If you're in your car and you're driving, if you're out for your walk or your run, I hope you have some handkerchiefs.
Grab your Kleenex.
What happens when 2 podcast hosts start being polite and start getting real? Let's do some real talk from a small consultancy based out of South Florida, Miami, right here. Let's do it. It's hard to talk about business in this day and age without making reference to the economy, without making a reference to inflation, and without making a reference to the impact that inflation has had on your industry, right? Whatever industry you're in. In our case, we're in the professional services industry, and our industry has been very directly impacted by the phenomenon of the inflation that was caused mainly due to the pandemic. During the pandemic, we all expected the worst, and the government stepped in and provided a lot of liquidity to make sure that the worst didn't happen. And the worst didn't happen. The worst didn't happen, and then all that liquidity was left. And so initially, there was a boom for our industry, right? There was a lot of more projects. The enterprise was investing a lot of that money into innovation,
And strategy.
expansion,
Yeah.
and going after more revenue. And we were a big part of it. We were a small part of it as Ampersand Consulting, or 112 back then. But as an industry, we were a huge part of it. And then when the interest rates started to go up, the Federal Reserve, the central bank, started to increase interest rates to stabilize the economy and lower inflation. And that had the opposite impact on our industry and on our clients. And since then, most reports show that the professional services industry as a whole had 2 years of contraction whereby the pie was getting smaller, and us being a small little piece of that pie, trying to just bite a little bit bigger in that pie, we're swimming a little bit against the current there. And that's where we've been for the last, I would say, 12 to 18 months. At Ampersand Consulting, we've invested in business development. We've invested in our people. We've developed a lot of programs to make sure that everyone who is a part of our team is a partner in our business and has the opportunity to grow and learn and scale their impact. But we face the current of this inflationary period, and a lot of our clients and potential clients feeling like they need to hold their purse a little bit closer to their chest. And so things like rate inflation in terms of the rates that professional services were charging went up during the pandemic and then started to feel a lot of resistance in the last 12 to 18 months. So we've been dealing with that. So new clients, old clients have shown a lot of resistance now to like our rate increases. We needed to compete for talent, right, during the pandemic and right thereafter. So we had to increase compensation to be able to be competitive. And so then that kind of crashed into the fact that now suddenly clients started to say, wait a minute, we're trying to decrease our expenses and our costs. We can't find liquidity as easy as before. Interest rates are high. Demand for our products and services has become more elastic. And so that kind of has put us in a tough situation. We've been able to navigate that successfully so far by being very disciplined and diligent about how we spend and where we spend, and making sure like every client we work with, we always expect the same, but making sure that we are able to point to ROI of any investment that we're making in terms of advertising or promotion. But it hasn't been easy, has it?
No, and it's definitely not all been, positive learning. I think we've learned just as much from maybe some things that we tried that weren't as successful as well. We took a couple big shots on some ideas that we'd never tried before. We attended some bigger events, put more money into, or I guess more attention, I should say, into networking and being more present in the community. But it's still been hard to, I guess, break through the surface level conversation with people and really get down to exploring what their needs actually are and how we can actually help.
Yeah. And then you obviously have to throw into that the fact that we are, at least now in the last year, in this current year, in an election year, in a lot of large enterprise organizations, or actually more so in the public sector, which we have done a lot of work for, there's been a wait and see pattern. And so we've talked about amazing projects. We've developed those projects to the point where we have a defined scope. We have the buy-in from the key stakeholders. We have the right resources available, the right folks available to take those projects on. But then once we actually start getting closer to that finish line, the powers that be in those organizations turn around and say, maybe we should wait.
Yeah, maybe next year.
Maybe next year, maybe after November.
Mm-hmm.
That requires us to have a level of patience that I think we seldom have had in the past, right? Yeah, that's how I think the economy and the elections have played a role in where we are now and how we're navigating our business as a small consultancy with big aspirations. And we obviously continue to be in conversations with all of our friends and potential clients. And we look forward to making a lot of those projects come through. And we have been able to, of course, execute on some projects, just not as many as we've hoped for, and quite frankly, as we had planned for in our business plans for this year in particular, but even last year, I would say. During the pandemic was this crazy time of everybody went remote. We are a remote first organization. So it put us in a level playing field in a lot of ways with a lot of our larger competitors and a lot of the internal folks in the teams. I think we could feel like we were much more true partners with our clients because we were all remote. And now a lot of the large organizations have returned to the office, and that makes our logistics more complicated, right? Now that means we need to travel more. We need to spend more time on planes. We need to spend more money on hotels. And if we want to go for a new contract with a potential client, those large firms now are shipping 5, 6, 7 folks to go wow that potential client. And for us, that's a huge investment that we need to do just to be on a level playing field. Whereas during the pandemic and shortly after the pandemic, doing these meetings through Zoom calls and things like that was a much more accepted practice. And I would say level playing field is the word.
Yeah, there's also an opposite side to that around offshoring becoming more common practice, especially we're seeing it here a lot in South Florida. It was, I think, a theme that we noticed at Emerge as well, that there is the option and availability of resources, especially in the technology industry, who are accessible across the world because of remote work, and often at a cost savings to our potential clients. So it's, again, a tough balance where we're really trying to look out for our people and take the best care of them. But then it poses a challenge or a hurdle for us to justify those higher rates and stay competitive.
Yeah. But then something else happened. Generative AI came along, and a lot of new possibilities came along with it. Obviously, it's impacted every industry and every business and pretty much almost every role in any organization. In consulting, I think, I'll be honest, when I tried it for the first time, my first feeling was, I think consulting is dead, was my initial feeling about it. Not to be specific, advisory, not consulting in general, but the advisory part. Like if you can ask an LLM that is all-knowing any question about your predicament that you're in, or you can feed it the data about your situation and ask it how to proceed, and it'll give you adequate response. That was the initial thought. However, what happened actually is that it was more of a leveling of playing field within the consulting industry, because one thing that the large consulting firms have on smaller consultancies like ours is that they have this deep knowledge base of previous engagements and work that they can tap into to advise their clients in any field or industry. And that for a small consultancy, we only have the knowledge base of the work that we've done, which is much more limited than that. But with something like generative AI, but now we get closer to the ability and the knowledge that the larger organizations have. It also makes the clients have that access to that as well. Here at Ampersand Consulting, we're not just advisory. Like a lot of the work we do is technical and implementations, integrations, running the actual agile delivery and things like that, which obviously a chatbot wouldn't be able to do just yet. And the other thing that's happening with that is, Jen, you and I have been having a lot of discussions about, hey, maybe we can leverage this new technology to increase the pie and maybe find a way to provide the same value to the smaller fish in the sea, and do it in a way that both the fish benefit, but also we and our team benefit from providing that value and exploring a lot of different business models that before were just inefficient and not achievable with our size.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we were competing against these huge organizations with our approach being that we're small, we're approachable, we're friendly, we lead with empathy, all of these like internal qualities. But at the end of the day, it's a business. And so we can say all of those things and we might be more enjoyable to work with, but it doesn't really provide us that same advantage from a dollars and cents perspective when it comes down to it. So I think we're, like you said, swimming upstream, trying to prove our value through who we are. Whereas if we look at organizations maybe that are smaller, that could really appreciate or see the value in what we bring in those areas, there's likely to be alignment in a lot of ways. I think that we weren't even able to accurately align with previously with some of these really large organizations where it really just comes down to the dollars and cents in the end. And it doesn't really matter ultimately if we're leading with empathy. Like we always talk about, even us as Ampersand, we're a team, right? And we have to approach it, I think, that same way when we're speaking with potential clients, that we'll be their teammates.
So we've been talking about, oh, that was happening and it wasn't good for us, and that was happening and it wasn't good for us and all that.
Yeah.
Okay, but you're here.
Yeah.
Why are you here?
Yeah. Okay. I get it.
You're here. We're here. Our team's here.
Yeah.
We're all here.
Yeah.
Because you want to build something, right?
Yeah. And I want to prove to everybody who's here that we can do this.
And what is it that we want to do?
We want to win.
What does winning look like?
We want to win new clients and make an impact.
There it is.
Yeah.
What kind of impact would you like to make?
I would like for us to make people's working lives better. Like when we leave, people were really thankful that we came and they feel better about their jobs or where they work now.
Okay. So could you describe like the ideal like scenario without getting like technical about the project, but like maybe like in the sense of how bad was it, in which ways the situation is bad, the individual is not enjoying their work and then could potentially come in and shake things up and make it better. And then when we leave, how they feel. If you could you walk us through what that looks like?
I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of untapped potential within most organizations that they either just don't have time to figure out or not, or don't have the resources to do it. And you really can allow, whether it's a team of people or an entire organization, to have those aha moments of realizing that untapped potential and elevating their business in one way or another, whether it's through breaking down silos. That's probably my favorite impact to have on an organization because that frustrates at all levels. And the end result being a more harmonious way of working. I guess in more like technical instances, it's untapped potential of their data, for example, and never having the time or the resources to figure out what they can actually do with that data. So the aha moment there would be understanding how they've been operating previously to chart a path forward that looks even better or more profitable than it was before. Yeah.
Sounds like bringing people together.
Yeah, just taking some weight off, I think. Like the things that you don't enjoy either about your job or your department or your organization because they're painful or they don't make sense, or you've always thought there was a better way to do this, but never known how or had the time to do it. And now you like your job more or you like your workplace more because it's functioning more like it should or has the ability to.
I'm thinking of the image or the expression of lifting the weight off of their
Yes,
shoulders.
exactly. Exactly. That's why I wanted to be a consultant in the first place. If I was working in these organizations where things were clearly broken and everyone can see it and is frustrated by it, but it always seems to be someone else's responsibility. So no one's fixing it. And being a consultant seemed like a cool chance to come in as a different perspective, an outsider coming in with fresh eyes that maybe people will listen to differently because they're not as ingrained into the day-to-day, and be able to point to what's not working and help fix it. And then, yeah, everyone feels a little lighter afterwards.
That sounds good.
I think that's what consultants are supposed to be.
But they're not, are they?
Often not, no.
No, where are they?
An extension of, or really probably more often than not, just like filling a gap. I think either underutilized or not taken seriously, maybe. But I think often, yeah, they just too quickly get caught up in what's happening in that organization and they don't take that third party perspective as much as they could. And then, yeah.
You think that has something to do with like in most consulting organizations, they don't really, like the individuals on the teams doing the work don't really have that much at stake.
Yeah, maybe that. And also, I think they're met with resistance. I don't think it's very common that a consulting team is appropriately integrated into the organization. There's never really that onboarding or orientation that happens between the client and the consultant to set the expectations, understand why they're there. So they're often seen as threatening, and you get resistance from day one from people who are on the inside. They want to hold their cards close to their chest, or they see you as someone who's, whether it's threatening their job or they don't understand how things work the way you do because you were there first, which is fair.
That's fair.
But yeah, it's a perception that
I feel like
probably
you're
not
being,
effective.
Yeah, you're being very diplomatic. And with what you just said.
What do you mean?
Because you're putting the impetus on the client, right? You're saying like they're not introduced the right way. They're now.
No, it can very much be the consultant's fault. It's on you to make that impression.
Okay, if you had a magic wand, right, and you could magically create or transform, I think is the right word. You could magically transform Ampersand Consulting to your dream consulting firm. What would that look like?
You go first.
I already did. I did that for 8 years. Your turn.
I don't know. I think we're like the Ghostbusters fixers. People look forward to us coming. And we have a good time doing it. We work with them, not for them. And there's a mutual trust that exists. And yeah, we roll up our sleeves and we really help and we listen. And when we leave, people miss us. And they want to work with us again or keep working with us.
That's interesting. So one thing I think about a lot is like the legacy, large, big, I'm not going to say a number, but big consulting firms. A lot of them work with an enterprise client and then they'll go back and work with that enterprise client again over decades, continue to work with that enterprise client again. And sometimes I think that an interesting approach would be that actually the client is not just in theory a partner, but that they actually are. So what I mean by that is they literally invest in the company, in the consulting firm. And so then it's a true partnership and they provide the service. It's in perpetuity.
Yeah, okay.
And they rotate, obviously, the folks that work on it, whatever, as they would.
Mhm.
But it's a partnership with shared interests. And it's not just a transactional thing from project to project. I think that sometimes something like that might yield the type of environment where I think some of the things you want to see in consulting thrive and people working as teammates and not client consultant. Maybe you wouldn't even call it consultant, right? Maybe you would call it something else.
Yeah, I think it needs a different name.
Like ninja.
A ninja. Yeah, that sounds a little aggressive. But yeah, something like that.
That's all the time we have.
Are you kidding?
I think that's brilliant.
Oh, I hope people are crying.
Thank you for joining us. Please remember to
Look forward.
like and subscribe. I'm kidding. No, but do definitely follow the pod. We can use more followers. We've had listeners in a lot of different countries too, and that's really exciting.
Shout out to Canada.
Shout out to Canada. Yes, showing up strong on our stats. Shout out to the Ampersand team. You guys are crushing it. Thank you to our clients, our partners. We definitely couldn't be doing what we're doing without you, and especially like all this turbulence that we've been facing in the last couple of years post-pandemic. We literally could not have done everything we've done without you. So it takes two to tango in consulting. No clients, no consulting.
Exactly. And we've had some wins too. It's been a lot of fun.
We've had, tremendous wins, a lot of fun, a lot of learning, a lot of growing.
Lots of learning.
And amazing friendships internally in the company and with our partners and clients as well. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Looking Forward. We hope this discussion has given you some new perspective on how you yourself can navigate uncertainty. Be sure to follow. Share this episode with someone who might want to listen to it. Next episode, we're probably going to slide right back into our general line of discussions. But if you enjoyed this episode, thank you for sticking through it, listening to it. We appreciate you opening your ears and your minds to our hearts.
Yeah, a little behind the scenes.
Until then, keep looking forward.